All right. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Kate Gleason. I am here today from Kitchen Conservatory. I am the membership director at the Missouri Botanical Garden. I'm delighted to be here when COVID struck and we kind of thought about having to move our member speaker series virtual. The one program we really thought about is what are we going to do when we do our annual herb program with Anne Cori, the amazing Anne Cori from Kitchen Conservatory. So luckily, Anne has agreed to let us film live for a second year in a row from the store. We're here in Clayton this morning. You can see we've got a great display. We're going to dive into some great cooking. Before we dive in and start that, looking at herbs of the Mediterranean, I do want to introduce Valerie Whitney, who is the chair of this year's St. Louis Herb Society annual sale. I know many of you attend this annual event. We're so excited to bring it back on site at the garden. So here is Valerie to tell you a little bit more.
Thanks. Hi. I'm here this morning to extend an invitation to you, Missouri Botanical Garden members, to attend the 19th annual herb sale of the St. Louis Herb Society. This year's sale will be outdoors, luckily under tent, and an in-person shopping event right outside Missouri Botanical Garden's current visitors center. The sale will be held rain or shine. On Thursday evening, April 28th, all day Friday, April 29th, and through the morning of Saturday, April 30th. Garden members, you will have the first opportunity to shop and purchase herbs and native perennials from 5 p.m. until 8 p.m. on Thursday, April 28th. During this time only, garden members will receive their 10% discount on plant purchases. Sale hours on Friday, April 29th are from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. If and while plants remain, Saturday's sale hours on April 30th are from 9 a.m. until noon. Cash, credit cards, and debit cards will be accepted. No checks, sorry. Approximately 6,000 plants and 130 different varieties of plants will be sold. A document with complete descriptions and photos of all of our plants offered for sale can be found on the St. Louis Herb Society website at www.stlouisherbsociety.org. If you plan to attend the sale on Saturday morning, April 30th, be sure to first check our website to determine whether our plant inventory has sold out and the sale has closed early. Thank you so much for your continued interest in plants and herbs, and happy gardening.
That's great. I don't know about you, but I am making my list now for that herb sale. The Thursday member preview, just a reminder to bring your membership card for entry. No reservations are required for that. You don't need an advance ticket to enter the garden that evening or any day, but do bring your membership card or some sort of proof of membership. We'll be there to check you in. And if you have any questions, you can always go online to see the Herb Society's website or call the phone number on the back of your membership card. Again, now it's my pleasure to welcome Anne. We were talking before the program. We think this is the 12th year that Anne has joined the member speaker series to kick off the Herb Society. So I know this will be 1 year. I can tell you it smells fantastic in here, and I'm so delighted to turn it over to you. So Anne, take it away.
Thank you very much, Kate. Thank you, Valerie. Pleasure to have it, be with you all today for herbs. And I always think it's fun to talk about herbs with you and to have your questions. So please don't hesitate at any time to write a question on the screen, and Kate will read it to me, and so that you can follow along and have success at home. Because my goal is for you to get excited about adding herbs to your cooking, and nothing better than when you can add fresh homegrown herbs to what you're doing. So I was given the title Herbs of the Mediterranean. And when I think Mediterranean, I think falafel. And falafel, it's a veggie burger. And I know that everybody's been talking about the Impossible Burger, but why go with lab-generated meat when you can make your own veggie burger at home with real ingredients? And I'm calling what we're going to make today green falafel, because we want to add herbs and flavoring to the veggie burger. So falafel, what is the basis of falafel are chickpeas, sometimes known as garbanzo beans. Any way you call it is fine. I purchased dried chickpeas at the store. They're readily available at all the markets. And yesterday, I covered them in water and soaked them. So this is a pound of chickpeas that I covered with water, and then they grew and softened. And you can see they're slightly squishable on it. But this is the basis of our little falafel and our burgers. So I just drain it out. And what we're going to do is we're going to pulse it in a food processor. You could also use a meat grinder to do it. But I'm going to take a couple of scoops of this, drain it out, and put it in my food processor to grind up to make our little falafel. And I'll set this aside for our next one. But as I said, I want it to be quite flavorful. If we just do this, it's kind of plain. And to me, falafel burgers are a vehicle, and they're a vehicle for all the fun things that you can put with it. So after we make our burgers, we're going to dress it with a cucumber salad and tahini sauce, and I'll show you how that goes. But first of all, to flavor it, I'm going to use some spices. So I have a dry skillet. Nothing is in the skillet here, on medium heat. And first, I'm going to toast whole coriander seed. One of the most common questions I'm asked in cooking is, how long do spices last? And generally, the difference between herbs and spices is that when people say herb, they're talking about the leafy green stuff. And when people say spice, they're talking about the seeds, the dried things. If you buy ground spices, they have a much shorter shelf life than whole spices. Whole spices can last a long time. And when I say a long time, I mean even spices from your first marriage are still okay to use as long as they're whole. It's when they're ground that they lose that aromatic flavor quickly. So to get the best flavor punch is you start with whole seeds. And again, what I'm toasting here are coriander seeds. I just shake the pan along here to get an even toast. Now, I've probably burnt more seeds than I've successfully toasted. It's kind of like toasting nuts. You have to be careful. At this moment, I suggest not answering the telephone or tweeting online, because you want to mind your seeds until they get a light brown. And more importantly, you can smell them and they're aromatic. So the seed that I'm using here is coriander, and coriander comes from the same plant as cilantro. So this is like a double whammy of the flavoring for the falafel, because I'm using both the whole seed and the leafy green. So I've got a nice golden brown on my coriander seed, and this is a spice grinder. If I put my seed in here, just let them slide in to grind. And then my other seed that I'm going to toast is cumin seed. And you have to be real careful with cumin, because cumin is smaller than coriander and it will toast much, much more quickly. So you want to mind it and make sure that it doesn't over toast, and almost anticipate. Oh, suddenly the aroma is getting me. You got to smell aroma on the Zoom, because that's what we need here. So anticipate that it's going, because the pan is still hot, and you can see that you don't want to over toast, because if you over toast, we have to start all over again. And that we don't want to do. So I have my 2 seeds in here, and I'm just going to run it through the spice grinder to make a fine powder. Oh, a little bit more to get it. Try not to let the motor stop before putting it out. Okay, so then we have our fine powder, which I'm going to put into our soaked falafel.
An early question about the garbanzo beans. Somebody asked from home, will canned garbanzo beans work there?
So that is a great question and a frequently asked question, because the canned garbanzo or chickpeas are very easy to use. Open the can and drain it. And yes, you can use it. However, if you take the time to make to soak the beans overnight, I think you get a better flavor. It's not a canny taste, it's a better flavor. And it's actually the more traditional way of making the falafel is to use the soaked beans that you that you then drain and do. I mean, I admit cans are easy, but if you're going to go to all this, let's do it the right way. I'm going to put in a little bit of onion into our mixture here. You can use other sorts of alliums if you want, besides onion. If you wanted to use just the allium family, the onion family of herbs has so many, like green onions or shallots or chives. And then, of course, we always want garlic in it because, I mean, after all, if you say the flavors of the Mediterranean, I think everybody immediately thinks of garlic as one of the key flavors of the Mediterranean. So some of you may be aware that in my other life, I like to grow garlic. I'm a hobby farmer on garlic. And garlic is harvested. It's a 9-month crop, and it's harvested at the end of June. So the garlic I'm using today is actually garlic I grew last year and harvested. But what happens with garlic as it stores, it doesn't last forever. And you can see that as I peel the garlic and take the clove, there's a little green sprout coming up because that's the garlic trying to grow again. So if you see in a lot of recipes, particularly French recipes, they always say that if you have a garlic clove with that green sprout, you should take it out, just take a little paring knife and remove the green sprout because the garlic can be quite bitter. So we'll put some garlic in.
And how much garlic are you putting in?
The question is, how much garlic am I putting in? Have you ever had something with too much garlic? Well, I guess that is possible. But if you're a real garlic fan, you can go to town and put in lots of garlic. If this is one of the beauties of a dish like this, is how versatile it is, that you can make it to your own taste buds. I like to put a lot of garlic in it, but well, just so you can see here, if you find the taste of raw garlic to be a little overwhelming, this is garlic I have roasted. And what I did is I peeled the garlic and I submerged it in olive oil and I baked it at 275 degrees for about 20 minutes. It's meltingly soft like butter, and it's also milder to use. So certainly roasted garlic could be an option in here. I'm going to put the roasted garlic in our tahini sauce today because sometimes the sharpness of the raw garlic can be a little overwhelming.
And one more garlic question. How do you store your garlic?
Oh, that's a great question. How do you store garlic? The garlic likes to be dry. So I store it in the garage or the basement where it's slightly cooler and dry and not in plastic and not in the refrigerator, kind of spread out. And you can see that it's gotten dry now. But remember, this is garlic that I harvested more than 9 months ago. I'm always impressed if I still have some that's lasting for it. So I am now going to season up our chickpeas with, I have in here the spices, the cumin and the coriander, the onion and the garlic. What I have here is red pepper, salt, and baking powder, because I like to put in a little baking powder so it's a light feel.
And what about another question we had? I just will say, we're going to share this recipe after the fact. You'll get this by email from the garden. But some folks are asking just measurements, approximately how much are you putting into those spices? How much onion did you use? It looks like maybe half an onion.
Yes. What I'm using is, if the recipe is that you're going to get is for a pound of garbanzo beans. I'm doing a half recipe here. So it's a half a pound and it's a half a cup approximately of onion and a half a tablespoon of baking powder and a half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, and a half a tablespoon each of coriander and cumin. Now, this is cilantro, the leafy cilantro. And Herb Society member Mary Hammer taught me how to explain the difference between cilantro and parsley. And so I always like to tell everybody because, as you know, it can easily be confusing for people, particularly supermarket checkout people. So parsley, the leaf of parsley is pointy, and pointy starts with a P, and parsley starts with a P. The leaf of cilantro is curly, and curly starts with a C, and cilantro starts with a C. So don't mix them up, but they're both valuable and they're both useful in this. We're going to do a combo of the two herbs to get, because to me, if I think of the herbs of the Mediterranean, I think parsley, cilantro, and mint as being so crucial and key for the flavor. So I've already chopped up some parsley. And I've got some cilantro here. I don't mind the tender stems of cilantro. I do mind the stems of parsley. Try to avoid the parsley stems. And I'm going to put this on my food processor and pulse it so that it gets not pureed, we're not making hummus. We're making a pulse of the, and so I pulse it back and forth. And then just take a little bit of scrape down. And one of the questions is, I need a little bit of flour in here to help the falafel combine. And that's a judgment call, a couple of tablespoons. So I'm going to start with probably 2 tablespoons and see if that's enough for the falafel to pull together so I can make a meatball out of it, because that's what we're doing. And give it a little scrape down. And that looks like it's going to combine pretty well. And so this is what the falafel looks like in this case. And you can see it's got a nice green color. And if you want to make it more green, you can, but it's just kind of pretty that way. And the question is, I like to use a disher, technical word is a disher, you may call it a cookie scoop, in order so that all my falafel are exactly the same size. And what I do is I squish it together to see if it will hold together. And if I can make it in, if I cut my hand and it can make it into a ball. There actually is a little tool that is designed as a falafel maker, but I suggest only getting that if you're going to go into a falafel marketing. It's easy enough just to scrunch up your balls together of the falafel. And if it doesn't quite stick together, add another tablespoon of flour, and then it will stick together. But I think these are pretty good here. It's always a little bit of a judgment call. Kate, are there more questions along the way?
Yeah, so one is, what's the best way to remove those parsley leaves from the stems?
So I know this seems tedious, but the best way to remove parsley leaves from the stem is to pick it off one by one. Mm-hmm. And that may seem like, am I really going to spend all day doing this? Trust me, it's worth the taste to do it. If you're in a tremendous hurry and you just want to zip off the top and then remove any big stems that you see in there, that's another way to do it. Just to make sure that you don't get the harsh stems of the parsley leaf in there. So the other day in cooking class here, in a participation class, I handed a customer a bunch of mint, and I said, could you chop the mint? And she chopped everything, leaves and stems. That's not a good idea, because most stems of herbs are not very pleasant to eat. And you can see how thick the mint stems are. So in mint, you just want to use the leaves and pick off the leaves, and you will have a better tasting item. So then we had fun picking out stems from all the chopped wood.
One other question about your equipment. It looks like you're using a coffee grinder for your herbs versus a pestle or mortar. Do you need to clean in between the coffee grinder, and how best do you usually clean that?
That is a great question about the electric grinder that I have used for grinding the herbs. You certainly could use a mortar and pestle. The power of electricity makes things go very easily for us, so that's always nice to do. But I recommend that if you're going to have a coffee grinder for your spices, don't ever put coffee in it, because you can never get rid of that flavor and oils of the coffee when you for your herbs. And we really don't want our herbs to be tasting like coffee. So at home, I have two coffee grinders. One is just for spices and the other is just for coffee. And I got the grinders in two different colors, so I don't forget and confuse them, because that can cause some problems also. But in terms of cleaning the coffee grinder between spices, I remember once we had a chef here who was making some Mexican food, and I handed her the coffee grinder, and we had just recently had an Indian spice class, and that freaked her out because she didn't want her Mexican food to taste like Indian spices. So the best way to clean up the coffee grinder between your cuisines is to use dry, uncooked rice and spin that around, and the rice will effectively clean the coffee grinder.
That's a great tip.
You got another question?
I got a couple. So they really are. A lot of questions about some shortcuts. Can you use the herb paste that are available for any of this?
The herb paste, is this something you buy at the grocery store that's already ground up herbs?
I think so.
Okay,
in
so
a little tube,
I'm a 25-year member of the St. Louis Herb Society, and our whole mission in life is for you not only to plant herbs, grow herbs, use herbs, but also to cook with herbs and enjoy them. Because anytime you use a freshly made product in your home, the end result is going to be significantly better than something that was packaged and made somewhere else. You don't know how long that paste has been in the package. And more importantly, you don't know what else is in that package, unless, of course, you can read the fine print on the packaging. But when they chop up herbs, they don't last in the packaging. They've got to put something in it so that it can last, and that can cause other problems along the way. And that's what you want to be quite careful about if you're going to go to the trouble of making food. Why not start from scratch so it can be the best food possible and really better than anything you eat out? At least I think that is a better way to do it.
So with those fresh herbs, how do you store for instance, cilantro and parsley to keep them fresh for a few more days? Any tips?
So that is a great question. You walk into the supermarket and you pick up the cilantro that's sitting there, or the parsley, and in the supermarket, they are constantly spritzing it with water. So it's wet. And then you throw your wet cilantro into the bag, and then you get home and you throw this bag into your refrigerator. Well, this is not going to last long, because in the plastic, with the wetness, the herbs will start to molder. And because what herbs like to be, and there are a couple of ways to store it. I mean, you could treat it like cut flowers and put it in a glass, or you can completely and totally dry the herbs and keep it in a sealed plastic bag dry. And then they will also last very long. But most importantly is when you buy the herbs, plan on using them. And I think people sometimes get attracted to buy a bunch of parsley, and maybe they're using it for one particular recipe, but then the rest of the parsley goes bye-bye. here's what you need to consider is that your parsley can be used in other recipes, even if it isn't calling for parsley. And parsley is a great blending herb and an herb that can be easily put in all kinds of recipes. Whatever, in fact, it's hard pressed for me to think of a savory recipe that wouldn't taste good with parsley. So I have the cucumber here, and what I'm going to do with the cucumber is, well, I guess looking for another tool there, but I'm just going to chop up the cucumber because we're going to make a little cucumber yogurt tomato salad to go with this. And I'm just going to dice up the cucumber. And I got the seedless cucumber, so I didn't have to worry about taking out the seeds. One of the great things that most vegetables are at least 70% water, and the water doesn't add flavor. However, if you salt the vegetable, you are able to pull out the water and you get something that's crisper and more delicious and more cucumbery. So if you take about 15 minutes, so if I take the cucumber here and I put it in a colander here, put the cucumber in, sprinkle it with some salt, and then I let it sit. So all that water can be pulled out of the cucumber and have something more delicious. So I'm going to let the cucumber go and sit for a bit. But meanwhile, back at our food processor and the falafel, I thought it would be great fun to show you another thing you can do with your falafel, because traditionally, falafel are deep fried, and I'm going to get somebody, I'm sure, who is going to ask the question, do I have to fry the falafel? Can I air fry the falafel? Can I do something else with the falafel? Well, sure you can. You can always do something else with the falafel, but I'm going to show you something really fun. We're going to make a falafel. In other words, a falafel in a waffle maker. So here are my spices again that I have already ground up for this, including the baking powder. And I'm going to put that in here. And I also want some onion and garlic because, of course, we want some onion and garlic into that. Like, why wouldn't you? This is not a waffle that you would put maple syrup on. This is a waffle that you'd put a cucumber relish on or tahini sauce and have some fun with. So I'm going to peel up the garlic here, put that into our food processor, and also some parsley, because this is an herb group, so we need lots of herbs. Once again, pulse it up. A little bit of flour to hold it all together. And this, just to lighten a bit, I'm going to put in a little bit of egg white to make it a little bit lighter.
How much egg white are you putting in? About how much egg white was that?
1 egg white.
1 egg white, perfect.
All righty, so we're done with that. And I have fired up my little waffle maker here. I'm going to drizzle in a little bit of oil so that it doesn't stick too much, although of course it's a non-stick. Put in, and this is an American waffle maker, so it's all, so they're skinny. I wouldn't do this in a Belgian waffle maker. You want them a little skinny with the flat American waffle maker. And I'm just going to let the waffle cook. And there you have it, falafel. Try saying that 3 times fast. And meanwhile, back at our food processor, I'm going to clean out our falafel mixture here, which is pretty close and similar to the other one. Kate, do you have another question?
Couple. Another question about going back to the storage of the herbs. Somebody said they store their herbs in a fridge in a damp cotton towel. Is that good for herbs?
Yes. See, the cotton towel will keeps the moisture away from the herb. And if you look at the little herb containers that you buy at the store, those plastic, square plastic containers, you'll notice there's a little padding at the bottom, and that's to soak up any excess moisture in it. So having something to soak up the moisture in the plastic bag is good for keeping the herb. All right. So I don't think you can have a falafel without tahini sauce. And tahini sauce is really very easy to make. Tahini is a sesame seed paste, which you just buy in a jar and will last in your fridge. And I'm going to put in the sesame seed paste in here. It's really a very useful item to have in your kitchen. Does so many, works in so many different things. And I want to put some lemon juice in it. So what I do is cut the lemon in half. I put it in my lemon press, cut side down, and then I can squeeze it and it turns it inside out. Got to make sure you all can see what I'm doing here on the lemon. And then this is the one where I'm going to use the roasted garlic, because I do think when you do raw garlic, it can overwhelm the taste of the tahini. So we're just going to put in some roasted garlic in there. And of course, this is an herb class, so we got to have parsley. You know, last year I did the class all on parsley, and when it's Mediterranean, I feel as though I'm doing parsley again, but parsley is fabulous. So I'm just going to get this to be a smooth puree. Don't forget the salt. You got to have some salt in here. Meanwhile, I'm going to peek at a little bit more, because I always like to make sure the falafel is crisp. Great.
It takes longer to cook a falafel waffle than a regular waffle.
Yes, it does take longer to cook, because you do want to make sure that it gets nice and crisp and a little brown, but it's pretty close there.
Great.
So, okay, so here's the secret to tahini sauce: ice water. And I use a gravy separator, so I'm not pouring ice into it. So if I just have this gravy separator, because it pours from the bottom and then doesn't get the ice, and then I run this in, and I'm going to do a scrape down to make sure that everything gets totally combined in my tahini sauce. And I mean, there's not a lot of sauces where water is the key ingredient, but it is for tahini, and you do need a machine to get it completely blended in. The tahini is so dense that it's hard to mix in by hand. And I think that looks good for our tahini sauce. Meanwhile, how's our falafel? Hey, that looks pretty good. You know, I didn't fill the whole. Here's our falafel. I didn't fill the whole round. I should do it again and make sure that I get it absolutely pressed around so it looks like a round. But we can keep doing this as we're doing something else, right? Kind of cute.
Questions while you're doing that.
Absolutely.
Back to that cucumber that we're salting. Is that an English cucumber?
The cucumber is an English cucumber or seedless cucumber, but you can use any cucumber you like.
Okay. And does it matter on the parsley if you use Italian or curly?
Great question between Italian or curly parsley. Italian parsley just has much more flavor. I think a lot of people feel that curly parsley, I thought I had a little curly parsley in here, although it looks pretty on the plate because it's perky and stands up, it doesn't have the oomph and the flavor of a Italian parsley. So I know at the Herb Society sale, we offer several different kinds of parsley. And I always recommend going for the Italian parsley because I think that just adds so much flavor to what you're doing. And as long as you're going to go to the trouble to have all this wonderful parsley in your dishes, it's something you want to be able to taste. A lot of people have the feeling that parsley is something that they that is something that they add for color, but does it actually add flavor? Well, if you start using Italian parsley, you'll discover the flavor that it adds. So here is our tahini sauce, which we're going to garnish our falafel with. And meanwhile, I'm heating up the oil to fry the falafel we have. And let's go back to our cucumber sauce, our cucumber relish. So I have a tomato that I'm going to add to it. I always think it is worth the time and trouble to peel your tomato. Nobody likes to eat tomato skin. It just detracts from the beautiful flavor of a delicious tomato. And if you all are gardeners and you homegrown your tomatoes, then you know how easy they are to peel when they're a homegrown tomato. The supermarket tomatoes are a little bit harder to peel, but is worth the effort. I mean, you noticed I peeled the cucumber, the tomatoes the same way. You'll just end up with something that's better if you do peel it. And the other thing you want to do with your tomato, in addition to peeling it, is to seed it, to remove the seeds out of the inside of the tomato, because that's just going to kind of muddy up our relish and not be so, and make it too liquidy. So if I cut the tomato through the equator, cut it in half, I'm then able to see the seeds on the inside and then squeeze it and remove out all the seeds and the excess liquid for it. So there is our tomato, and I'm now just going to chop up the tomato into a dice that will be added to our cucumber. You can also salt tomatoes because that helps to bring out the flavor of the tomatoes and make something that's quite good. So I'm going to add the tomatoes to the cucumber here. And put that in there. Kate, you have another question?
This one was sitting here a while, but it's back to our garlic. Can you freeze whole garlic bulbs for storage?
I have never tried freezing the garlic for storage. So I find it's best just to use it. Don't get it lost in the freezer. Here's my little round falafel there. So we got that there. Okay, are we coming up to temperature on our, a little bit longer on there. So mint, what I'm going to use, I love a tomato cucumber salad because it gives me the opportunity to use mint. I think in the United States, we relegate mint to desserts, particularly chocolate desserts, and we don't think of mint in a salad so much. But mint is wonderful in a salad. And if we're going to eat herbs of the Mediterranean, if you've had tabbouleh, which is the bulgur wheat salad, frequently it's called a parsley salad. Mint or cilantro is great to add to it. And I think in the Mediterranean, they think of mint as a savory herb and not a dessert herb. And I'd like to bring that back to remember to because what mint offers is a very cooling flavor to food, and that cooling flavor can be very nice as a to combine with some of our rich food, is if you have something quite cooling and delicious. So I'm draining my cucumber and tomato. I have some nice yogurt here that I'm going to, and I got some thick Greek yogurt to do for this dish. Put that in there with the mint and the cucumber and the tomatoes.
And you don't need to rinse the salt or anything off that
I'm not
cucumber.
going to add more salt to this because, but if you were feeling that this is too salty, you could certainly rinse the salt off if you wanted to. But to me, I want something that's both cooling with the mint and refreshing with the fresh vegetables, and then has the salt to combine to add to it. So here is our cucumber tomato with the mint. And if you wanted to add more mint to it, maybe we can add a little bit more mint to it.
Is that a particular kind of mint?
So the mint I like to use is spearmint. And I believe that the mint that we have on the herb sale is Kentucky Colonel Spearmint, which is a fabulous mint. It grows well, and I think they love it for mint juleps. And it's a beautiful mint for that. What I don't recommend is using peppermint. Peppermint is a very different flavor. And I think in a lot of ways, peppermint is not so food friendly. It doesn't blend as well with dishes the way spearmint blends. So be careful when you choose your mint to grow, because after all, when you grow mint, you might have it for the rest of your life in your garden because it'll never go away. It's somewhat invasive there. So you want to be sure that you get a mint that you genuinely like. Temperature for oil for frying. So I have a cast iron pan here. It's just half full with oil. I don't have to get in a big pot to put it in. But my oil temperature is 325. I find that the falafel cook better if you don't cook it at too high of a temperature. So frequently, a lot of deep frying is done at 350 or 375. To me, that browns the outside before it cooks the inside. The other thing about falafel is you noticed I picked a disher this size. I think that's a good meatball size. Dishers are sized by number, everything from 8 to 100, which is the number of scoops you get in a quart. This is number 40, and 40 is the right size for this. I find if it's too big, the falafel don't cook on the inside. If it's too small, you just don't get quite that effect that you want. So, and so I had my thermometer in here until it hit 325. It's still on, so it's still cooking, but it'll also slow down a bit because I put the falafel in. And all I want to do is brown the outside to have the good falafel. So it's brown and crispy. And then I just realized I'm supposed to put a shallot in my cucumber salad. Shallot is also a member of the onion family. The way I like to cut a shallot is I leave the root on and I take the stem end off, and that gives me something to hold on to as I'm mincing it. I'm often asked, when do you use an onion and when do you use a shallot? And my response is size of the dish. If your dish is big, like a beef stew, use an onion. If it's small, like a sauce or a salad, use a shallot because a shallot blends well with so many things. So I'm just going to mince up the shallot by cutting it parallel to the cutting board. Then I do a little vertical cut because I want the shallot to be very finely minced for our salad. And then at this point, I can get a perfect dice on the shallot to add to our tomato, cucumber, yogurt condiment here. Bench knife to put it in, get it all mixed up, stir it up. And there is that mixture. I'm going to now look at my falafel and see if they're ready to turn over. They could get a little bit browner on the underside, so I'm going to let that go another minute. So, of course, you can't have a falafel sandwich without pita bread. I have made this homemade pita, and pita is super easy to make, much less complicated than pizza dough, because think of it as pizza dough without toppings. So as you can see, this is a pocket pita because it nicely blew up, which is great. One of the differences about pita bread from pizza is that pita should always be soft because you put the falafel on the inside and then you fold the bread over. So you never want to get your dough crisp, but you want it to be pliable so that you can fill it with your sandwich. And of course, anything can go in here, chicken or lamb or things like that. But I want to talk about what I have on top of the pita bread. And I have a spice blend called Za'atar. And this is a shameless plug for the St. Louis Herb Society and our Za'atar. Za'atar is a spice blend of Syrian oregano, sumac, sesame seeds, and salt. And that is a condiment that you see throughout the Mediterranean to offer great and wonderful flavors to so many foods. You can just sprinkle the Za'atar in a dish of olive oil and dip your pita bread into it. Or you can sprinkle some Za'atar on top of your homemade hummus to give it more zip. It is a great flavor. And you see, oregano, there are many different varieties of oregano. And I think the oregano that many of us are familiar with, thought I had a little bit of oregano in here to show off. A lot of times we'll talk about Greek oregano or Mediterranean oregano. It's very punchy. It's got a real flavor to it that has some bitterness to it. And when you add oregano to a dish, it balances the cheese or the tomato fruit taste and really adds a nice blend. However, the Greek oregano, or what they use in the Mediterranean, is very different from Mexican oregano, which is actually a verbena plant and not a true oregano. So my recommendation is that if you are a gardener who wants to make a herb garden for the cuisines you like to cook, be careful which oregano you plant as to whether you prefer to do Mexican cooking or Mediterranean cooking, because the oreganos taste different. The Mediterranean oregano is much more bitter and pungent than the Mexican oregano. And it's not that one's better or worse than the other. It's how it blends in your cuisine and how it does on that. So, Kate, do you have some more questions for us?
Yeah, just a couple. Somebody asked about the olive oil. They said, do you use olive oil only in your herb cooking, or is there a time and place for other oils?
That is the question about olive oil is something that I get all the time, because olive oil is very confusing. I mean, after all, what is extra virginity? I mean, who knows what that is? But I have been using the olive oil I like to use is an extra virgin olive oil. That is and what constitutes a good olive oil is that it is bitter. It has some fruity notes, and it's peppery. And bitter and peppery are different. They're two different. It's the way it catches in your throat when you just take a sample of the olive oil, because olive oil should have a lot of oomph to it in adding the flavor. And of course, the people who, the cuisines that use a lot of olive oil, they want that flavor punch. But if you are interested in a more neutral oil that will blend and won't be so strong tasting, because after all, when you use an extra virgin olive oil that has the sharpness to it, the pepper taste, the bitterness, and the fruit, that's what you're going to taste in the cooking. And that is the taste of Mediterranean cooking. So if I'm going to make a hummus with my chickpeas, I want to drizzle it with an extra virgin olive oil. And a good one, one that really will have that flavor punch. However, if I am not frying the falafel in olive oil, I am frying the falafel in vegetable oil, because the olive oil breaks down when you cook it. So any reason you spent a great deal of money on your bottle of olive oil is destroyed once you heat it past a certain temperature. So save your good olive oils for salad or for putting on top of a hummus dish dip, and don't use it in terms of deep fat frying, which is not such a good idea. All right. So what I have here is I have homemade pita that, oh, by the way, I cooked it on a pizza stone at 550 degrees for 2 minutes. It's really fast and easy. I top it with my falafel. And then what we want to do is we want to put some cucumber tomato relish on it. Okay, I got a stem in there. Fire that chopper. Whoever chopped those herbs, fire her. She did not chop that one beautifully. And then we have some tahini sauce, which we will drizzle on top. Now I'm doing it with the falafel, but you could certainly use some chicken or lamb in this dish. And then here is your pita with Mediterranean herbs all over it. We have cilantro, we have parsley, we have mint, and then we have spices of cumin and coriander seed, and then the za'atar, product of the St. Louis Herb Society.
And where do you get that if you wanted to buy that product of the Herb Society?
I am sure that the Missouri Botanical Garden can help you all that, but at Kitchen Conservatory, we loved carrying the products of the St. Louis Herb Society, because not only does the Herb Society make za'atar, we also produce herb de Provence, curry powder, and one of my favorites, which is Chinese 5-spice, which is so much better than the Chinese 5-spice that you can buy in the stores that who knows where that was made. And the reason the St. Louis Herb Society small batch herb production is so good is because so many of these spices are individually toasted before grinding. And as you saw with my taking the time to toast the seeds before grinding, it makes a huge difference. All right, so with this on our falafel, the way I would top that is with the cucumber relish on that to have on there. So what other questions?
Yeah, so we've had some good ones, some generally about herbs in general. Can you recommend a basic basil plant? I know basil is always a popular product at the Herb Society sale. So what's some recommendations there?
Well, we sell so much basil because, number one, basil is an annual and it will die at the first frost. Don't plant it too early, because if we have a late frost, you will lose your basil. I've done that. It doesn't get planted till after you're sure we're out, because it will die at 32 degrees. And basil works out so well in Mediterranean dishes. Any of these dishes that I made today with parsley and cilantro and mint, you could substitute basil for and put basil in any of it, or as a blend with any of it, it would work too. Basil has one problem though. When you grind it up, it darkens in color and it doesn't stay bright green. So if I were to put basil in the falafel, I recommend, because part of the fun of the falafel is opening it up and seeing that bright green color on the inside. So when I make a pesto or blend basil in something like this, I always put parsley in it, because the green of the parsley is so important in helping to set that color. So if you have basil, use parsley. Your dishes will look so much more attractive if you do that. So there are a variety of basils that are out there that the Herb Society has. I think some of them are kind of quirky, like cinnamon basil. I don't plant cinnamon basil. It's kind of a quirky flavor, but I love and then I like to look at the leaf. If the leaf is tiny, and I always forget the basil plant that's a tiny leaf. Is it the Genovese basil? There's one. Globe, that's it. Globe basil has these tiny leaves, and it's a pain in the neck to pick the leaves off the stem. Just a pain in the neck. I can't be bothered with that. However, the basil I love is called lettuce leaf, because it's this big giant leaf. And rather than sitting there trying to pick off individual leaves, I got this nice big leaf that I can add. And so lettuce leaf basil is my particular favorite. That is, and the Herb Society always has it, and I always buy it.
Great. Yeah, so you talk about the different types of oregano. What about Turkish oregano?
There are different types of oregano, and they have different flavor components. And as one of our Herb Society members, Bruce Chalker, says, taste the oregano before you use it in the dish, because it'll have because there's so many different compounds that are that the oreganos can vary in it. And I believe what is used in our za'atar is actually Syrian oregano. So I don't have a source for finding Turkish oregano. Usually what you find available to plant or available in the stores is Greek oregano. And herbs and plants are like wine. Terroir, or where the soil is grown, can make a big deal in the taste of it, and what the cultivar is and how it comes across. And trust your palate, because you'll know by tasting it whether you like it or not like it, and whether you want to use it in a recipe.
Great. A couple questions about when you're growing herbs. Do deer bother your herb garden?
So deer are always a problem, and deer love mild things. So deer actually love parsley because it's mild. Deer do not usually like the strong tasting things like they don't like the garlic at all. However, I do have a big deer fence around my garden because the deer are they will eat whatever they can.
Yep. And is it possible to grow herbs indoors?
So the question is, container herbs growing indoors. Certainly you need a very sunny spot to grow your herbs. Herbs like full sun. And you can do them indoors, but you'll never get the beauty and the size of the plants that you can get outdoors.
Right. And then a question about when you were talking about tomatoes. The person here said, I've had a couple of tomatoes too long and the seeds have started to grow. Is it okay to eat those seeds?
Well, I don't eat tomato seeds anyway.
Ever.
Seeds don't add flavor. I always seed my tomatoes and take the seeds out. So I'm not a tomato seed eater.
Right.
I always think you get the beauty of the tomato is the flesh of the tomato, not the juice, not the skin, not the seeds. You want to peel and seed your tomatoes.
Great. And somebody asked another question kind of related to oregano. Do you use marjoram as a mild oregano?
That is a great question and a great point. Marjoram is related to oregano. It is milder. Sometimes marjoram is referred to as sweet marjoram because oregano is quite bitter. And to my mind, marjoram and oregano are interchangeable in most recipes.
Great. It looks like we're just hitting about noon, but if anybody has any final questions they want to type to us, but while we're doing that, here's a testimonial, not a question, but you talked about the parsley class last year. A person had a shout out. I had never grown parsley before, but after your class, I put 3 plants in my garden. I brought 2 plants in for the winter and they have provided parsley all winter. So happy to watch your class. I know it's seconded here today with some other comments coming in about how great this was, but
I am so glad that I've got some parsley fans now because I'm always fighting the idea that nobody eats the parsley.
Yeah, you've got believers. Again, is there a class taught that I can attend? So just do you want to talk a little bit about classes available here at the Kitchen Conservatory?
Thank you, Kate, for letting me give a shameless plug about Kitchen Conservatory. So Kitchen Conservatory has been here for 38 years. We offer cooking classes on every imaginable topic, including falafel and herbs. And this summer in June, when I start to dig up my garlic, I'm going to do my annual fresh garlic class. And if you've never tasted fresh garlic straight from the ground, it is a revelation. It's really like a vegetable. It's sweet. It's juicy. You want to eat the whole crop when you taste fresh garlic. And we're also going to be working with the garlic scape, which is the seed stem of the garlic. You have to pick off the scape so the energy goes into the bulb and not the flower. So then you take that flower stem and you make things with that. And then there's another thing called green garlic, which is the very young garlic. It actually kind of looks like a scallion or green onion, except it's garlic. And in early spring, that is a great crop to dig up. If you plant a lot of garlic the way I do, 2,000 heads, you're not going to eat all 2,000, so you might as well start eating it early after the last frost. It's kind of fun that way. And I do In the summertime, a lot of people buy the garlic so that they can plant it themselves because you plant it in October. And I am trying to get everybody onto the beauty and wonders of garlic instead of whatever that is in the supermarket that probably was harvested a couple of years ago. We can do better here and grow our own.
That's great. And then a couple final questions, I'll let it round out. Another parsley believer, you talked about adding parsley to basil, how much parsley, what's that ratio usually to give the parsley, allow the parsley to green up your dishes?
You don't need to put in a lot of parsley to your pesto. A handful will do it. And so if I wanted to say the ratio, it would be something like 4 to 6 to 1 of basil to parsley. It's just enough to give it to set the green color. The other green you can use to help your pesto stay green is a handful of fresh spinach.
Oh, great. And then one final question about some of the tools there and gadgets. Will you hold up that lemon press? They couldn't see that and they were admiring. So how that works, you said you put that in.
I love this because, I want to get every last juice out of the lemon. And the lemon press actually comes green for lime and orange for orange or yellow for lemon. You take the lemon, you put it cut side down. That's the part that confuses people because it's counterintuitive. And when I take this lever over, it turns the lemon inside out and you actually get every last bit of juice. Plus it also collects the seeds in there too. So I find this is the easiest, most effective way to quickly juice lemons for dishes or limes, whatever you have. And of course, I feel as though we're in a stage where lemons are getting enormous and limes are getting enormous, and they become harder and harder to juice when they're that big. But yes, fresh lemon juice does make a difference.
All right. Well, I think that closes us out on questions. I will just say as a final comment, thank you again. Just a reminder for the end of April for the St. Louis Herb Society sale. You can find that information on our website, on the St. Louis Herb Society's website. And we will be sending out an email today with the recipes. I think we'll probably include the pita as well. That we didn't go into how she made it, but I can attest we watched her make that this morning before the program. So we'll include details on that. And if you have any other questions, again, you can always email membership@mobot.org.
Or call me. You're welcome to call me. We have a helpline here. People call us every day with food questions, and it doesn't have to be just about herbs or falafel. Any food question you want, well, we can help you with.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you again. We can't thank you enough for your year after year sharing of knowledge and cooking and enthusiasm. So take care, everyone. And just a reminder, next month's speaker series will actually be live in person at the garden, weather permitting. This is not rain or shine. This is hopefully just shine. We'll be at the Cohen Amphitheater at the garden. We'll have a couple of folks from our Kemper Center for Home Gardening, as well as some representatives from local nurseries to answer all your spring planting questions. So just like today, bring all your questions with you and we'll take care of you. So thanks, everyone, and have a great day.